Oh man, which is better, puke or throw up? This is gonna be fun. I love pitting two completely irrelevant piles of shit against each other. It's the PlayStation Move versus the Xbox 360's Kinect. And when was the last time you used any of these? I mean, at least the PlayStation Move, this kind of remained relevant through to the PS4 generation because the PlayStation VR used these for some reason. The Xbox 360 Kinect evolved into the Xbox One Kinect, which is one of the reasons why Xbox kind of, began their downfall that generation. And then like a year into that console, they just completely abandoned the Kinect. They were like, oh yeah, this is done. Then I think Xbox One Kinects ended up becoming like used for surveillance cameras or like medical equipment or all of this stuff, but like overall, like the Kinect is dead. We've officially moved on from the PlayStation Move. Like the PlayStation VR 2, 1 is a failure and 2 doesn't use PlayStation Move. So yeah, these are both completely obsolete, so I can just spout some nonsense about them and hopefully nobody gets mad, because honest to God, who gives a shit about any of this anymore? Well, let's rewind the clock back to 2010 because some people gave a shit about this. Well, I'd say most people were pretty interested in the Kinect for Xbox 360. This kind of took the world by storm for a little bit there. Microsoft's whole marketing with this whole thing was that, oh, you don't need a controller, you are the controller. And it almost kind of felt like it was solving a problem that didn't exist. You know, I remember at like an E3 press conference where they were talking about Kinect, they brought out like Steven Spielberg on stage. And he was talking about how much, he really loves video games, but they're always kind of a lot more inaccessible than like a movie. There's no knowledge you really need to just jump into a movie and just watch it. With a video game, you need to understand how to use a controller, and for a lot of people, that is a bit of a roadblock. So he was kind of talking about how, hey, the Kinect, like, yeah, like you don't need that. It turned out I think some games for Kinect are a lot harder to get working and a lot harder to understand than most games with a standard controller, but I digress. But, I kind of feel like the Wii already did that. That was the whole thing with that console, is that people who never played a game before could understand the Wii remote. Who the hell do you know that didn't understand how to control Wii Sports Bowling? Like, that was baseline. Everybody understood that. But still, I understand what they're saying here. The controller, even if it's as simple as a Wii remote, is a bit of a hurdle to overcome. This, all you gotta do is move your hand around like naturally, I guess. Like, yeah, this is natural. But what the Kinect represented, I can actually get behind. I feel like a lot of the hardcore gamers out there, they just have this big old stick up their ass, a big one, like it was practically a tree stump. They're like, I don't want this motion control nonsense, I just want games with a standard controller. The Xbox 360 controller is the pinnacle of controllers. And I'm just like, hey, listen, for most video games, sure. But, limiting yourself to like that controller, like video games can be anything, man. And you're telling me that like, oh, like everything you need is on that controller? Like, no, you can do so much more than that. Just take a look at Steel Battalion on the original Xbox. That comes in like this full-blown control setup to control this giant mech. It's like the whole point here is to give you kind of like an experience like you're actually operating a tank. And, like, you can't do that on a regular controller. Like the whole appeal of a game like Steel Battalion is completely lost when you put it on a controller. It's also lost when you put it on this, but we'll get to that. There's so many possibilities as to what video games can be, and I feel like the Kinect kind of allows some of those possibilities to come out, like all the dancing games on it. You can't do that with a traditional Xbox 360 controller. And there's definitely other examples, but hey, you know what? The concept behind it, I can get behind. I think the problem is this hit during a time in which Microsoft was kind of going into phase 2 of the Xbox 360's life. Phase 1 was all about the gamer, and then phase 2 was all about media consumption. It's like they noticed a lot of people liked watching movies on their Xbox 360 and how popular the Wii was, so they kind of transitioned over to being this everything box, and the Kinect was a big part of that. So this was initially announced in like 2009 as Project Natal, and they were showing off all kinds of stuff with that. One of the most infamous things was like Project Milo, which was like this completely fake ass thing. Like this thing never worked. It was a concept where through the power of Kinect and the microphone and the camera setups on this thing, you would talk to this video game character and you know, he would give you actual responses. He would consider what you said. It was like this like huge step for like AI. And here we are like 15 years later, we're just barely at that point now. Like, I'm pretty sure the only thing we ever saw from this game was this like tech demo trailer right here. And yeah, I bet there was some fishy nonsense going on here because like they were going like, see, Milo is actually like talking to the player. And like when the player asks him, did you do your homework? He gets all shy. And then the player writes something on a piece of paper and then shows it to the Kinect. And then Milo immediately looks at it and he can understand it. I'm just like, there's so many variables here. This would never ever work in the real life, especially at the speed it was working with the Xbox 360 Kinect. Like, I bet to get around the lie that project was, it was probably like, oh, it functions in this particular scenario. Like, if the gameplay footage they showed was actually factual, like, it probably only worked with like those specific phrases that the player was giving to Milo. It probably only worked with that specific player, and it was probably only like 5 minutes worth of content right there. So yeah, that's probably how they got around lying their ass off to us there. They showed off a lot of stuff that was like kind of cool concept wise, like, oh, in a skateboarding game you could scan your actual skateboard with the cameras here, and then it would be put into the actual skateboarding game. Okay, why not just actually use your fucking skateboard? Because this isn't like a Tony Hawk game where you're just sitting on the couch playing an arcadey game with a controller. Like, no, this is literally like you get off your ass and jump around in the living room in front of this thing. Like, I know it's like a very easy thing to just tell people to like, oh, why are you playing a video game about that? Just go outside. That's a situation where I'm like, buddy, just go skateboard. If you have a skateboard and you're exerting all the energy to skateboard, but in the living room without a skateboard, just go fucking skateboard. I will admit, this was kind of cool technology, but it was technology that wasn't like that groundbreaking or new, at least in concept. You know, Sony did something pretty similar to this in the PlayStation 2 era with the iToy. Now, the main difference is the iToy on PS2 was literally just a USB webcam that you plug into the PS2, and then it kind of just created games around the idea that like if the camera noticed like motion happening on one side of the screen or another, then you know, like, oh, that would count as like a hit or whatever, depending on the game you were playing. Pretty primitive technology, to be perfectly honest. Like, I'm not really sure if there was much unique going on with like the iToy specs. I'm sure there was like a little bit, but for the most part, it was kind of just a webcam. The Xbox 360's Kinect was more than just a webcam, but functionally, that's kind of what it boiled down to. I mean, here you have 3 cameras. There's also a motor in this, so when it starts up, it does this shit. It's creepy. I think that's my biggest problem with this. It's always been a little creepy. Even when I was a kid and I had more of like that childlike whimsy spirit, I didn't have to worry about anybody spying on me that much. I still kind of worried about somebody watching me through this. I don't know. The E3 2010 blowout for the Kinect really solidified a lot of people just having just an automatic disdain for this. Like they just didn't really show off a ton that was like, oh my god, this is incredible. They showed the bottom of an Xbox 360 Avatar shoe. Wha-bam! There it is. Pretty much the first 30 minutes of the press conference were just kind of like the standard stuff you'd expect from a Microsoft press conference. You know, Halo, Call of Duty, you know, nothing crazy. And then the last hour is literally just nonstop Kinect garbage. Like, oh, you can do video calls on this thing. And like, it's the worst paid actors you've ever seen. I loved it. I love this stuff. This is like the worst. This is like the worst, but it's also the best. I miss E3 press conferences where they were like this. I say that in hindsight because, you know, like back then, that was genuinely like pretty abysmal. But, you know, in hindsight, it's really funny to look back at. The games they showed off here, just weren't anything like that new. And even then, man, you know, like the stuff that was kind of cool, you know, they showed off like Star Wars Kinect for the first time there. And, you know, it's supposed to be this big thing of like, oh my God, I can be like a Jedi. I can use a lightsaber and it would be so cool. And I'm just like, bro, look at this thing. What feels more like a lightsaber? This thing with a giant glowing orb at the top of it that you can actually physically hold, or just doing this with your hands and just moving all over the place? But I'll give Microsoft this. The Kinect came out and it was a success. I mean, like, it sold really well. I remember I picked up an Xbox 360 for Christmas in 2011, like a year later, and the one I got came with Kinect because I really wanted a Kinect. I at least wanted, like, you know, one of the new HD consoles with their respective, like, motion control setup. I mainly wanted the game U-Star 2 because I thought that was really cool. It was like a game where you could put yourself in movie scenes and then it would, like, grade your performance. It was supposed to be like movie karaoke. It's not really great, but I really wanted it. And I ended up picking the Xbox 360 Kinect, probably just because, like, I think, like, you know, like, the deal made the most sense, but also, like, the Kinect just had, like, more games that seemed, like, I guess, more interesting, I guess. But that's getting ahead of ourselves here. Let's talk about this thing, because who the hell else is going to? The PlayStation Move for PlayStation 3 launched around the exact same time as the Xbox 360 Kinect. You know, they announced they were working on something around the same time. Microsoft announced they were working on something. They launched around the same time. They both got similar criticism, but I don't think the PlayStation Move got nearly as much heat as the Kinect, because Microsoft really pushed the Kinect. Sony pushed the Move, but, you know, I feel like the PlayStation 3 story was kind of an inverse of the Xbox 360's, you know? Everything started off pretty rough with the PS3, but it ended pretty damn well. Like, in that latter half of the PS3's life, like, Sony was pumping out so many games, and they were really working hard to just get some form of exclusives on their console, whether they were like actual exclusives or, you know, they had exclusive content. Like, I remember you had like Mortal Kombat, BioShock Infinite. So the Move always felt like it was more of like a supplemental thing rather than their main focus. Mainly because, honest to God, what the hell do you do with this thing? It was the PS3's Wii Remote. That's pretty much what it was. That's what the Kinect was, but the Kinect had like a much more unique proposition to the consumer, I guess. I never heard many people talk about this because, like, it is what it is. If you want a motion controller for your PS3, here you go. They released a fair amount of games that required this, and a lot of Sony's big games actually supported the PlayStation Move. Primarily, like, I'm thinking Resistance 3, Killzone 3. They had the sharpshooter gun attachment. They had the wheel attachment. They had similar nonsense to do with this thing, like Nintendo was doing with the Wii Remote. But again, you know, that's pretty much what this thing boiled down to. It was a Wii Remote for your PS3, but it was far more accurate. And no, I'd say it was a hell of a lot more accurate than the Xbox 360 Kinect was. And honestly, I find that looking back at it all, PS Move games, like, there's a far greater variety of different types of PlayStation Move games compared to the games that you got with the Xbox 360 Kinect. For the most part, this is dancing, fitness, minigame collections. This, you can do a hell of a lot more with. Or at the very least, you can do it well. You know, like, you can do a shooting game with this much better than with the Xbox 360 Kinect. That was my biggest problem. Like, when they showed off, like, oh man, check this out, there's this little section in like a Tom Clancy game with Kinect where, like, you can test out guns by, like, pretending to use the gun with Kinect. I'm like, bro, that is so dumb. In the end, I would say the Kinect was a massive fad. You know, like, it was really big that first year or two when it was on the market. But, like, 2012 and onward, like, nothing, man. Nobody cared anymore. The PlayStation Move quietly lived on a very long life. And I don't think it was really ever meant to do so. It just kind of like stumbled into that. But I like to talk about both of these a little more in depth by pitting them against each other. So I have three categories here. First up, we have control. So this will go over just kind of like the controllers themselves, you know, how it is to control certain games. And then of course there is the games themselves. And then finally we have legacy. Which one left a bigger impact on the companies, gaming, all of that stuff. First up on control, let's talk a little bit about this thing that you probably should censor. What a funny looking boy this is. Just a very curvy looking controller. But I will say, the PlayStation Move controller is honestly one of the best feeling controllers I've ever held. Now, that doesn't mean a damn thing, because how many games am I actually gonna be like playing with this? But I will say, this trigger is incredible. This is like the smoothest damn feel to any button on any controller I have ever felt. And just the feel of the controller in your hand, you know, the fact that it is so curvy, so rounded, like, it is great. Now, here's my biggest problem, though. Pretty much everything else. The buttons here, I think, are in a very odd spot. Not only the face buttons, but the select and start buttons. I have no idea why they reoriented the PlayStation buttons in, like, this rectangle. Because, you know, they're usually in this diamond configuration. They're all where they're supposed to be, I guess. You know, they just kind of took this and just kind of twisted it a little that way, I guess. But I'm gonna be honest, in PlayStation Move games, when they show a button prompt on screen, I have to look down. I'm not gonna immediately remember, like, oh yeah, this is where the square button is now. I don't understand why they couldn't just, you know, put the X button down here, the circle button on the right, the square button on the left, the triangle button on top. I guess this might be a little more usable, so they might have considered that. But at the same time, I'm like, if you're talking about usability, why are the start and select buttons on the freaking side? Like, okay, how often do I actually hit the select button in most games? But still, I mean, like, I literally, like, okay, I could hit the start button, but, you know, you really have to hit at it. This is a very tight button to click on. So, you know, I could probably shift my thumb over there. The select button, I'm gonna have to, like, reorient my entire hand to bring my finger up there, or I'm gonna have to twist this whole thing. There's so much space on this controller's face here. I don't get it. We have a PlayStation Move specific button here. This is kind of meant to replicate the A button on the Wii Remote. I guess they just wanted to give you one specific button just for the PlayStation Move controller. Since a lot of the games that release for this thing are a little more simple, you know, it's nice to just have like one button for your thumb to rest on. And I'm sure they probably didn't want to make that the X button. They wanted to keep all the face buttons on equal footing, I guess. They added just a new button here. Pretty much acts as like your A button. Now, there's another big problem with this. There's no D-pad on this controller. So, you know what's dumb is, like, a lot of PlayStation Move games end up having you, like, having to, like, shift it around and stuff to just move things around, and it's awkward. I mean, the PlayStation 3 menu setup, if you are using a PlayStation Move controller with that thing, like, there's no pointer like a Wii Remote on a Wii menu or anything. You have to, like, tilt the remote around to, like, navigate the menus. It's so overly sensitive. So I just think it's weird that there's no D-pad on here when you have all this space to do anything, really. Well, that's why they want to sell you a navigation controller. Every single one of these I have used, the battery is completely worthless. It is fried. So to use this properly, I have to connect a mini USB cable to the PS3, and I have to play this just connected to my PS3 with the cord the whole time. It's dumb. Well, this gives you an analog stick and a D-pad, which, again, this is stupid. Why isn't the D-pad on here? Because there's no way you're going to be using both the D-pad and the analog stick for anything. You know, they're both right next to each other, so it's just like, yeah, it's like, okay, how many games are actually going to use both the analog stick and the D-pad, especially when you have the motion controls and stuff? But still, like, just put the fucking D-pad on the Move! And then they have an X and an O button here for just, why the hell not? They're just repeats from over here. And then you have an L2 trigger and an L1 and an L1 shoulder button, even though this one is just called the T trigger. This is just a mess of a controller design, from, like, you know, how you label the buttons, where the buttons are placed, all of that. But they are still quite comfortable. That's my main thing. These might be absolute just dog shit in terms of, like, how they laid out everything, but the feel is good. You know what's silly is a lot of PlayStation Move games allow you, if you don't have a navigation controller and it's a game that requires an analog stick, they allow you to use a DualShock 3 in one hand with this analog stick and the Move controller in another. There's just something so dumb about this controller setup. But all right, so you connect this to the PlayStation Eye camera, and it just reads the giant glowing ball on here. And that way, it can track, the pointer functionality of this, and, also the motion and everything. And it is really cool. I do think this is a very fun way to do motion control. The glowing orb is cool, and it's squishy on the top. So it makes it then if you hit your uncle in the back of the head with this thing, we'll probably only give him a slight concussion. But the movement of this thing is incredibly smooth. It is really damn good. This is one of the best feeling motion control devices I've ever used. But you know what's really dumb is how much it has you recalibrate. I don't understand this. What is there recalibrate? You know exactly what this thing is. It is a giant glowing orb. There is nothing to get confused about here. They keep on having you do this like weird salute thing. I feel like I'm doing something offensive whenever I calibrate the PlayStation Move. And that's just the thing. Like the PS Move on PS3, like it works really well a good chunk of the time, but when it doesn't work, it feels like there's less excuses for it to work. Like this feels like it should be foolproof, Like at least with the Kinect, like man, it's just kind of guessing what's going on half the time. This, like, how many glowing orbs do you have in your house in the field of view of the camera? When this thing fucks up, I get more upset because I'm genuinely like, bro, seriously? It does a damn good job most of the time. But when it doesn't, I'm like, I could just play Wii Sports. Yes, the sensor bar and Wii Remote are a lot more finicky than this. But it's much worse technology, and I understand that going into it. And there's also far more games I want to play on the Wii. By comparison, let's talk about the Xbox 360 Kinect. This thing requires a lot of you. You need a lot of space for this to work as well as they kind of want it to. You can get by with a limited amount of space. I was able to play this in my bedroom as a kid. I was able to play this in like my apartment living room, even with like a bunch of crap around. Like it will function. It'll do fine. But ideally you want literally like a gymnasium. The Kinect tracking works, but it's so delayed a lot of the time. And it's not like that delayed, but like it is delayed enough to the point where it gets frustrating and it gets tiring. Even just selecting things with your hand, just moving it, especially holding your hand up like for an extended period of time, it gets tiring. On top of the fact that the cursor just moves just slow enough that I'm just like, just give me the damn controller. Even doing voice commands with this, saying Xbox, blah, blah, blah. It is so much faster with just the controller. Like, yeah, it feels like you're a part of the freaking future with this thing, but like, it's just a novelty. So much of what this thing does is really just a novelty. Yes, it can detect people fairly well, but again, like the speed it tracks it, like it doesn't make for a very tactile experience. Now, when it comes to certain games developed for this, it definitely varies. I'd say games like Kinect Adventures and Kinect Sports really do get the most out of this. It feels like these games were designed around the Kinect's limitations. So when you actually play a lot of those mini games, they feel pretty good. The problem is, I don't think most Kinect games are really designed around the Kinect's limitations, and thus, most of it feels kind of crappy, which is definitely the case for pretty much all of these kind of motion control devices. Nintendo understood the limitations of the Wii Remote. That's how they were able to make Wii Sports as good as they did. But then you look at something like Deca Sports 2 on the Wii, and it's like, yeah, they didn't understand as well. Same with the PlayStation Move, but I think the thing with Kinect is that when you pick this up in 2010, 2011, the idea of like, oh my God, you are the controller, this is so futuristic and advanced. It feels like, oh my God, literally anything is possible with this thing. And then when you actually plug it in, literally that is anything but true. You have more limitations using this thing than like any other controller, it feels. Now, the Kinect does work. It does do what Microsoft advertised it doing for the most part. But when it comes down to it, the Kinect is slow. It asks a lot of you and a lot of your space. Its voice command feature, who the hell cares? And I feel like the technology, while it was advertised as being like super, super in-depth and futuristic, I don't think it was there enough to really create like a lot of like really good gaming experiences out of it. Like what Microsoft promised with the Kinect is like all the way up here. Like, oh my God, imagine the most immersive gaming experience. But in terms of what the Kinect could deliver, bring it down to like 5 to 10% of that. So when it comes to the feeling of control and the controllers themselves, I do prefer the PlayStation Move. Even though this is kind of just Sony's version of a Wii Remote, I mean, that's all it's set out to do, and that's what it does. Microsoft acted like the Kinect was gonna be like the second coming of Christ. And bro, let me tell you, if he's coming back as this, I think he's kind of angry at all of us. Now let's talk about games. So I have the 2 pack-in titles here. Sports Champions came with the PlayStation Move. Kinect Adventures came with the Kinect. And these are both of a very similar quality. I say to both of them, who the f cares? Here's the thing, like both of these are perfectly fine games. I kind of like how Kinect Adventures is trying to do something, I guess, a little more unique than just a Wii Sports clone. Now, what the hell is it? I don't really know. You're at like a camp or something. Here's a bunch of like mini games based around camping. I mean, some of them are not too bad. You can definitely have some fun with this one. I especially like the rally ball game where you're smacking a bunch of balls and, you know, you can control, both your legs and your arms. That one's not bad. Reflex Ridge is kind of like an obstacle course one. You know, like this had some pretty decent ideas when it came to utilizing the Kinect in a fun way to create a minigame collection. The problem is it does not have the same kind of longevity as like a Wii Sports does. And same can be said for Sports Champions. You know, I have a little less respect for this one because it is like literally one of the most shameless Wii Sports knockoffs without absolutely any personality. You have these gross, realistic looking human beings, but you know, they have some funkiness to them. That's where the personality comes in. You know, it feels like they went for the sports that weren't like immediately associated with Wii Sports. Sure, you have archery, that was in Wii Sports Resort, but you know, volleyball, that wasn't in Wii Sports. Table tennis, disc golf, like, all right, well, Frisbee was in Wii Sports Resort. Table tennis was in Wii Sports Resort, but, bocce ball. What, like, why, man? It's freaking bocce ball. Like, why would you pick that as your big showcase for your motion controller? Everything works, like, fairly well in Sports Champions, but none of it is necessarily all too thrilling, except for one. Gladiator Duel. This is like one of the most exhilarating uses of a motion controller I've ever experienced. Literally just kind of like a fighting game, you know, kind of this game's equivalent to Wii Sports Boxing, but it's so much more in depth, and like the motion controls are so much more like accurate and detailed. Like it genuinely feels like your motions really are translating into the game. And it's especially really good if you have 2 PlayStation Move controllers where one can act as your shield and one can act as your sword. It's really damn good. In my opinion, it validates the whole package. But I will definitely say, like, comparing these two, I think Kinect Adventures does a better job just representing what the Kinect can do as a whole. Sports Champions feels like just like the most soulless, like, we gotta do a Wii Sports type game. Kinect Adventures at least has some spunk to it, and there's not necessarily like a game in this package that I hate. There are lamer games than others, but I think they all roughly do a pretty okay job of showcasing what you can do with the Kinect. But the question is, what other games do that for each of these devices? Well, alongside the launch of the Kinect, we also got Kinect Sports. So that was definitely kind of an interesting way of going about things, you know. Instead of packing in Kinect Sports, they packed in Kinect Adventures adventures, probably because Kinect Sports is more of like an actually like fully fleshed out video game, and this is definitely more of like, oh, this is a damn pack-in. It's got like 5 mini games. Have at it. That's your freebie. Kinect Sports actually has a lot to it. There's a lot of games in there, and it's pretty damn good. I do kind of like Kinect Sports. It was developed by Rare. That was kind of like a bit of a hit to the gut there. You know, all throughout the Xbox's life, when Microsoft bought Rare, it's like, oh wow, well Rare just isn't making many good games under Microsoft. So then when the Kinect comes out, yeah, Rare pretty much became like, oh, they just make Kinect games now. Just another thing for Nintendo fans to bitch about there. Like, oh man, Microsoft ruined Rare. Working on Kinect games, yeah, that's not necessarily helping your case. But I will say, these were some of the best Kinect games. Like, these were really fun. Kinect Sports and Kinect Sports Season 2, pretty damn good. You also had Dance Central, which was developed by Harmonix, who, you know, created the Rock Band series. Dance Central did a great job showcasing, honestly, what the Kinect does best, which is dancing games. Like, no matter how much you hate the Kinect, you have to admit it is the controller for dancing games. The Wii definitely started the trend with the Just Dance series starting there. And, you know, the PlayStation Move is more accurate than the Wii Remote, but the Kinect, just not having to use any controller at all and being able to track your whole body, that is a massive game changer for games like Just Dance and, you know, the Kinect exclusive titles, Dance Central. And there are some cute little oddities thrown out there. I know there was Happy Action Theater for the Kinect, which was an Xbox Live Arcade downloadable title by Double Fine. And that game was goofy as hell. I mean, it's literally kind of just like a funny little, like, webcam toy, but it utilized the Kinect pretty well. It utilized the power of the Xbox 360 well, to the point where, you know, it genuinely is kind of like a really fun time. It makes you feel like a little dumbass kid again. The Gunstringer, that's a pretty decent game. And of course, my beloved U-Star 2. U-Star 2 isn't that great, but I did really like it at the time. I mean, like, I love the idea. I don't even think, like, when it came out, like, I really got a ton out of it. Especially these days. As somebody who does, like, video editing all the time, I mean, I can just spend, like, 10 minutes and put myself in a famous movie scene, and I'll get like a lot more fulfillment out of that than using the Kinect with U-Star 2. However, the concept of, oh, you have to reenact famous movie scenes where you're put into the scenes, like, I adored that concept. I thought it was so damn fun. And then I got the game. 1, nobody really wanted to play with me. 2, it wasn't that great. It wasn't like it was false advertising or anything, but the quality of the camera just did not really do it for me here. Like, you ain't fooling anybody with this. Like, oh my god, what? You're in Animal House? I mean, it's cute. That's all you can really ask for, but that's it. And that's a sentiment I have towards the rest of the library of games on Kinect. That's it! When I look at the majority of the games for Kinect, outside of these, you know, these solid titles, like, we're not really talking much here. Kinect Star Wars was a pretty big title, but I don't really think anybody was that swooned over by this. I think a lot of people were, like, excited by the concept, but like I said previously, you know, like, something like a PlayStation Move gives you a much better, like, general lightsaber-esque experience than pretending you're not holding a damn thing in front of a Kinect. And I just don't really think it worked all too well. And it was just a minigame collection at the end of the day. They really pushed, like, the whole, like, oh, like, lightsaber battle portion as, like, yep, that's what Kinect Star Wars is all about. No, it's a small fraction of the larger package of Kinect Star Wars, which includes the fucking Han Solo dance, Sonic Free Riders. That game just doesn't fucking work. It's awful. And it's crazy to think, like, oh yeah, you know, you had Sonic Riders on the GameCube, and then Sonic Riders Zero Gravity on PS2 and Wii, and then you had Sonic Free Rider. This doesn't even feel like it belongs in the same series. And I'm not even a fan of Sonic Riders, and I'm going like, bro, this is like pissing in the mouth of Sonic Riders. How dare you? Rise of Nightmares was kind of like just an oddball experiment to do like a horror game with Kinect. I think it was kind of like a weird side game / spiritual successor to like the Condemned series. on Xbox 360. They tried doing like a bunch of these franchise kind of like, oh, adapted for Kinect things, like Harry Potter for Kinect. You had Dragon Ball Z for Kinect. You had some Sesame Street Kinect games. You know, some of these were actually not the worst quality. I remember Sesame Street Once Upon a Monster. Hear me out here. For what it was, like, it was a very high quality little game for children. Like, it did the job. Fruit Ninja Kinect, I forgot about that one. Fruit Ninja Kinect was actually really damn good. The problem is it was just fucking Fruit Ninja. Yeah, this is the game I can get for $1 on my iPhone, but I think this did a really good job, like, actually giving you a reason to want to play that game off of your iPhone. You know, the Kinect really did kind of bring out, like, a whole new side of that game, and I think that was really, really cool. But then there was Steel Battalion Heavy Armor, which I alluded to before. This game is rancid. I guess they kind of thought like, hey, we can bring back Steel Battalion, and with the Kinect, you know, you can use a standard controller, and then you can use the Kinect for all these other actions of your tank. So that way, Steel Battalion is a little more accessible. Like, you can actually just sell it as a normal video game instead of coming in a $100+ box of accessories and controllers and all this nonsense. But it's like, that was the charm of Steel Battalion, man. You turn it into a Kinect tile that barely functioned. No, that doesn't turn me on. Piss out of here. Most Kinect games were like licensed kids games. They were kind of like, you know, the evolution of Wii shovelware. But now they were on the Xbox 360 with these purple cases. Oh, it's a Kinect game. You had Carnival Games, Monkey See, Monkey Do, Game Party in Motion. Oh, Deca Sports hit the Kinect. But it's like, at the end of the day, what did the Kinect offer you that other consoles didn't offer you? Not much. A lot of the games that were Kinect exclusive, it didn't really feel like they were taking advantage of the Kinect's capabilities. It feels like they were exploiting the audience for the Kinect. And as much as they wanted to imply that, oh, you know, being the controller makes things so much easier, it honestly made these games a hell of a lot more complicated. They took a lot more time to set up, you had to calibrate them properly, and then half the time after that, they didn't feel good. They didn't work well. I will stand by this. The only games on the Kinect that I think are worth a damn are the dancing games, fundamentally. There's a couple of good ones outside of that, but for the most part, the Kinect is a dance game controller, and that's it. Now, what about the PlayStation Move? Well, just having, you know, an actual controller that, you know, mimics a Wii remote automatically gives you, like, so many more possibilities for what you can do with this. And with the PlayStation Move, we saw a lot of Wii games actually come over to the PlayStation 3, or at the very least, like, concepts from the Wii brought over to the PlayStation 3. I'm automatically thinking of No More Heroes. You had No More Heroes, Heroes Paradise on PS3, and you had House of the Dead Overkill on PS3. And I would say the PS3 version of House of the Dead Overkill is a great way to play that game, just because the Move is a perfect pointing device. Like, it is so damn accurate. No More Heroes, Heroes Paradise is definitely a way to play that game. I think graphically, it looks a little, like, funky. It doesn't look bad, but I think the Wii one definitely had a bit better, like, stylization to it, I guess. And even then, that game didn't even require PlayStation Move. It was just compatible. But I think having the PlayStation Move gave a lot of developers the idea to bring over ideas from the Wii over to their PS3 games. For example, Resident Evil 5 Gold Edition had support for the PlayStation Move. Yeah, not the original Resident Evil 5, only the Gold Edition, which is really strange. I think the reasoning behind this is the PlayStation Move did kind of require, like, some resources from the PS3 hardware to be used, and I guess the resources that the PS Move was using were just kind of baked into the Resident Evil 5 code. I don't know, I could be just talking out of my ass here, but fundamentally they had to kind of re-release the game with this Gold Edition for PlayStation Move compatibility to be a thing. Like, they couldn't just, like, patch the game or anything. It was kind of like a substantial thing. And honestly, it's really damn cool. It pretty much brings this right in line with Resident Evil 4 on the Wii, which is one of the best versions of Resident Evil 4. And now that exact same setup is brought over to RE5. And it's really damn good. Like, this is a really fun way to play Resident Evil 5. Already seeing, look at these Wii classics. Order Up is a really, really fun Wii game. Pretty much kind of like a restaurant simulator where, you know, you have to cook the food you're given the orders of. You got to do it properly. You got to get it to the customers on time. And then, you know, when you're done with the day, you can use your money to maybe buy better ingredients or upgrades or go to, you know, different restaurants or whatever. Really fun game. And then got a PS3 version. You know what's interesting? The PS3 version of this game has 2 exclamation marks instead of the 1 from the Wii game. That's one of my favorite ways a game has ever indicated that it is an updated version. And then we have one of my all-time favorite Wii games, GoldenEye 007. This game on PS3 is pretty much the same as the Xbox 360 version, except I guess there are some exclusives here, and you get PlayStation Move support, which basically makes this the definitive version of GoldenEye 007 on the Wii, though I will still maintain like the Wii version does have the best charm because this game feels like it was made for the Wii, so I just kind of feel like if you're playing this in HD on a PS3, you're kind of just thinking like, why am I not just playing Call of Duty? On the Wii, this game is incredible, and this is just an HD version of that, so yeah, I guess this is still a pretty solid version of it, and it is the definitive version of the HD version, considering you get the motion controls here. They actually took this as an opportunity to put out stuff like Time Crisis on the PS3. Now, I remember playing this for a little bit. Time Crisis Raising Storm was not very good, but you do get Time Crisis 4 from the arcades, and this other arcade game, Dead Storm Pirates. You know, you got a couple of rail shooters from the arcade on the PS3. I think like House of the Dead 4 was available on the PS3 digitally. You also got Dead Space Extraction from the Wii released on the PS3 digitally. So yeah, the PlayStation Move definitely got a lot of developers thinking about, you know, bringing their Wii games over or bringing over games that, you know, were once only really viable on the Wii, like rail shooters. Well, now, hey, we can throw them on the PS3. Still got some weird ones. Here we got Ninja Gaiden 3. This has PlayStation Move functionality. It stinks. It's just weird as hell. It's literally just like, hey, use the PlayStation Move controller to play Ninja Gaiden 3. Why? The fact that some games are compatible with the PlayStation Move definitely makes it a little weird. I remember the very first Tiger Woods game that had PlayStation Move compatibility. Man, that thing is like hidden in the menus. It is so hard to enable it. Toy Story 3 on PS3 has PlayStation Move functionality. I couldn't find it. And I had a damn hard time trying to find like any info on it either. And honestly, a lot of the PlayStation Move exclusive games, oh my God. Y'all remember Kung Fu Rider? The game where you're just falling down streets on an office chair? And that's it? It's one of the worst games Sony has ever put out. It might be the worst game Sony ever put out. And yeah, you're just using the PlayStation Move controller and just, you know, like, you know, tilting like that, you know? Thank God for the PlayStation Move. I gotta say, most of the PlayStation Move exclusive titles, ones that require PlayStation Move, they were designed entirely around PlayStation Move, yeah, most of them kind of suck ass. Here we have PlayStation Move Heroes. That's a crossover between Ratchet and Clank, Sly Cooper, Jak and Daxter. I mean, like, this is like a legendary sounding game. Like, oh my God, this has all these different PlayStation platforming icons all together. The game is awful. It is a horrible minigame collection that's trying to act like it isn't a minigame collection. I mean, look, it's at over 50 challenges. It's just kind of like, here's a bunch of little challenges to do. That's it. They have all these different like little party games. The shoot's kind of just a rail shooter, an original rail shooter that Sony published. That's a PlayStation Move title. And none of these are very good. That's the thing with the PS Move. I think the Kinect had like more iconic, like exclusive games that only worked with Kinect. The PlayStation Move just didn't really have a quality lineup of exclusive games. But when it came to the compatibility of the PS Move, that's where the Move shines the best. Because it's compatible with a fair amount of titles on the PS3. Even games that you wouldn't really expect, like BioShock Infinite or something. Portal 2 had PlayStation Move support in there. And the functionality of the PS Move compatible games, was actually pretty okay for the most part. The Sly Collection is PlayStation Move compatible, but it's only for these mini games in the collection that are god-awful. They're cursor-based. They're like little flash games, man. Like, seriously, this damn box art has like a 10% of it covered up by this PlayStation Move banner. And like, for what? The Kinect might win just for that. But that's just the thing. Like, it's just kind of a side thing that uses the PlayStation Move. Obviously, it was just kind of something to just weasel PlayStation Move support in there so they could put a giant PlayStation Move banner on the Sly Collection box. But overall, I mean, like, it's harmless. It's just dumb. Compare that to games that are compatible with Kinect, and yeah, those games are completely worthless. I can't think of really any Xbox 360 games that just are compatible with Kinect. They might offer a little bit of Kinect support here or there that are worth even a single damn. Most of this boils down to like voice recognition where you can squirt out voice commands or something. And like, who's using that? Who's playing Mass Effect 3 with Kinect support? Who's playing any of the Madden games with Kinect support? Like, honestly. At least with the PlayStation Move or something like a lot of the shooters that, you know, don't require the Move, but, you know, offer that support, you know, it gives you an alternative way to play that, you know, you might prefer. And I see a ton of value with that. Yeah, sure, the exclusive games aren't really that hot with the PlayStation Move, but honestly, like, it's kind of like comparing, like, you know, throw up to stinkier throw up. Both kind of stink, but at least, like, the Kinect, the exclusive games are a little more iconic. More people have more memories with Kinect exclusive games than PlayStation Move games. It's hard to name, like, a handful of PlayStation Move games, but I will say, a lot of the exclusive PlayStation Move games, you know, Sports Champions isn't that bad. They had a Sports Champions 2. Again, like, it just proves my point. Like, did you know that? Do you remember Sports Champions 2? And while a lot of these games are pretty bad, I feel like the highs are higher with the Kinect exclusive games and the lows are far lower. The PlayStation Move is more of a consistent mediocrity. And with all the other games that don't require the PlayStation Move but still support it, I'm going PlayStation Move on this one too. Well, damn, man, I don't even have to do the final category because the PlayStation Move won. Either way, why not? Let's talk about the final category. PlayStation Move would have won this too. The legacy. The Kinect literally destroyed the Xbox brand. I mean, it didn't directly, but it played a major part in where Xbox was heading for the next decade or so. Without the Kinect, I don't think the Xbox One would have had as disastrous as a reveal and launch, and that severely hurt Microsoft. That changed everything right there. And after like 2-3 years, the Kinect was pretty much completely just forgotten. The PlayStation Move, it didn't have as exciting of a life, but just the mere fact that these were the controllers used with the PlayStation VR on the PS4, it was a very bizarre use of old controllers. But, I mean, it kept these things functional for a good bit longer. These almost kind of held the PSVR back a bit. I mean, like, there's a reason why the PSVR 2 has completely brand new controllers. One, these controllers are from damn 2010. And two, the fact that, like, I think these controllers, you can detect your fingers and all of that stuff, which is actually really useful in VR games. But damn, you know, at the PS4 reveal, they were showing uses for the PS Move when they were showing off Dreams. Like, they were showing, like, this being used to move characters around. There's actually a weird amount of PS4 games that use this controller, which does show, like, this did a pretty good job. It didn't absolutely take things over and ruin everything, kind of like the Kinect did. The Kinect for Xbox 360, you know what? You know, I do have a soft spot in my heart for that thing. There are some fun games that use it, and, you know, the technology could be impressive at times. But who are we kidding here? For the most part, I'm never gonna use the Kinect ever again. I don't want to. Even leaving that thing plugged in these days, even if, like, all the servers for Xbox 360 are down, no matter what, that's still creepy as hell to have that thing just plugged in and looking at you while you're sitting on the couch all the time. Which is weird because the PlayStation Move is detected by the PlayStation Eye camera. The difference is the PlayStation Eye doesn't fucking move up and down. That's terrifying. So you know what? PlayStation Move, I'll take this any day of the week compared to the Kinect. It's honestly a little more interesting because I feel like Microsoft really oversaturated us with all this Kinect stuff over the years. Like, I remember the Kinect Disneyland Adventure segment from their E3 press conference. I remember Kinectimals. I remember all this stuff. Like, there's nothing a Kinect game is really going to do to surprise me. PlayStation Move, when I went through a fair amount of the PlayStation Move games in the PS3 library, I was surprised by a lot of the stuff that was there. There's a lot of hidden gems, and there's a lot of things that, like, oh, wow, that has PlayStation Move support? I never knew that. So, yep, you know what? The PlayStation Move is the winner here. Oh, okay, winner is a bit of a stretch. Let's just say this is good vomit.